this first part of today's lesson, we are going to be learning about the calculator. So make sure you have the calculator in front of you along with this piece of paper. The purpose of this piece of paper is so that you're able to write down all the important information that you might need to remember on how to use this calculator. And then obviously the calculator so we can go ahead and practice some of these problems or just practice some of the basic commands. So if I take a look at my calculator looks a little different than yours because it's black and gray and not yellow and gray. The buttons on this side, the main operations on your calculator, they're yellow. The big thing I want to point out is notice that these two buttons are, yes, blue and green. If on your paper here, if you want to take a colored pencil and you want to color the blue button and the green buttons and the buttons that are yellow, you could pause this video and do that because I think that would be extremely beneficial. So a couple basic things. I'm going to go over the bare bone basics of this calculator so that we can start actually using this fun thing. So first thing, notice that's highlighted in red is the on button. So I would press the on button if I wanted to turn it on. And then obviously notice there's a blinking cursor right here that's going to show that the machine is on. If you want to notice, and above all of these buttons, you have words written in blue and written in green. If you wanted to get one of the blue buttons, you would have to press the blue button first, and then you would have to press any of those buttons. So if you notice above the on button in blue, it says off. So how I would turn it off is I'd have to press that blue button first, and notice when you press that blue button, there's like an up arrow that pops up in your cursor. And then if you press on, it should turn your calculator on. It should turn your calculator off. So if I look at my helpful calculator commands, a couple things I might write on here is to turn off. I press second, which is the blue button, and then I press on. I always put my buttons in boxes so that my brain knows those are the buttons to push. Okay, so that's how I turn my calculator on and off. So most basic. Let's go back and look at this calculator. The buttons in yellow are the main operations, so plus, divide, multiply, and subtract. On, I believe, is also yellow. I could be wrong, I'm not looking at it. And these buttons at the top are also yellow. These buttons at the top only deal with graphing. Okay, so we're not going to be dealing with those buttons yet today because we're just learning the bare bone basics. So these are your main basic operation buttons. So if I wanted to type in 3 plus 8, I would type that in and then I would hit enter to get my answer. With old calculators, you always have to clear your answers every single time. You don't have to clear your answers if you don't want to. If you want to do 6 minus 12 and hit enter, notice it just keeps like a log screen of everything you've done. So you can keep going, and eventually, I'm just typing random things in here. It's going to start scrolling. So see how it starts to scroll? And if you press the up arrow, it highlights whatever you want. So let's say up on this row, you accidentally made a mistake and you didn't want to type in 6 minus 12. You wanted to type in 6 minus 10. You can highlight it by hitting that up arrow, and then if you hit enter, it prints it down below, and then you can hit that left arrow to replace that 2 with a 0, and then hit enter. Okay? So those are just some fun facts right there. The biggest fact would be if I wanted to type in -7 plus 10. So if I just come over here and I just write, you don't have to write this, but just so we can see it, -7 plus 10. So how would I type in -7 plus 10? Well, I want you to try. So if you go ahead and you clear your screen, you have to know, but you can. -7. A lot of you are going to try to type this. -7 plus 10. Why does that look funny? Well, that looks funny because your problem says answer right there. And it's not an answer because that minus sign actually means minus, not negative. So I'm going to have to clear my screen. And in order to do the negative, I have to press this button right here. Notice it's in parentheses. This just says negative. So -7 plus 10. the word negative, your brain has to remember that you have to push this button right here. So that's another basic calculator operation that I'm going to write out here. So to use negative, I'm going to type in with this button. Okay? So whenever you say the word negative, that's the button that you're going to use. And then to clear your screen, again, all you do is press the clear button. It makes life a little more complicated when you accidentally type in a long string of things and you have to delete one number. Chances your best bet is to clear it and then to type it again. Another basic calculator command is resetting your calculator. So if you notice with these calculators, there's lots of fun buttons, right? And I'm sure you're intrigued to pushing these buttons. And you're welcome in a second to push the buttons that you would like to push. However, when you're done pushing the buttons, and if you're just randomly pushing all these buttons, you could accidentally mess up some of the programming in the calculator. So when you like to push a bunch of random buttons, you might want to be able to reset your calculator so that it's back to factory settings. So I want you to pause this video, and for 60 seconds, I want you to push whatever buttons you want and see what you can do and what you can't do. Don't take longer than 60 minutes, otherwise you're not going to get through everything today. So go ahead, pause the video, 60 seconds, push any button you want, and then unpause, and I'll show you how to reset the calculator. So hopefully you've gotten to play with the calculator a little bit. So now if I want to reset my calculator, I'm going to press the blue button, and then I'm going to press the plus sign. Now I'm going to type the numbers 7, 1, 2. And then it might take a couple seconds to think, and then it'll say RAM cleared. So now your calculator is awesome to be used again. So how I reset calculators, so to reset, I press second, which is the blue button, and then I type 7, 1, 2. So those are the important buttons for that. Okay? Some other important tips, if I come down to this bottom left box, is how to make an exponent. So if I want to evaluate what 7 to the 4th power was, what I would do is I'm going to type my base first, so I'm going to type 7, and then to get my exponent, I'm going to press this rooftop button, and this rooftop button is the exponent. It raises it to a smaller number, raises it to the 4th power, and then I'm going to hit enter. And you get 2,401. If I wanted to evaluate negative 5 to the 5th power, I would do negative 5. Notice I pushed this button down here because that button right there is negative. Raise it to the 5th power and hit enter. I get negative 3,125. If I wanted to evaluate negative 2 to the 3rd power plus 1. So notice it has parentheses in here. So I'm going to use parentheses. Above 8 and 9 are where my parentheses are. So I'm going to type in a parenthesis. And then I'm going to type in negative 2, parenthesis. Now I'm going to do the exponent of 3, exponent of 3. But now to get plus 1, notice my blinking cursor is still on the exponent. I have to hit the right arrow to bring it back down, and then plus 1. And I should get negative 7. Okay? So in this note sheet here, I'm going to put to get an exponent, it's just the rooftop button. Okay? So now let's talk about a square root. So, I did not mean to clear all of that. Let's undo that. All right, so now if I talk about a square root, where do you see a square root symbol on here? Well, I see it in blue right here, halfway down the last column on the left. So how do I get that blue button? Well, I press blue, and then I press this button, and now notice I have a square root sign. 25, enter, I get 5. So to get a square root, I do second, and then I do. If there's anything else that I'm mentioning that I have not been writing down, just go ahead and make sure that you do write down, because this piece of paper is solely for you. The other wonderful thing about this calculator is it follows PEMDAS. Yay! So all of those fun PEMDAS problems is able to be checked in your calculator. It follows PEMDAS, GEMDAS, whichever one you use. PEMDAS, GEMDAS. So if I were to erase one of these problems up here, and I were to type in -2 to the third power plus 5 times 4 plus 1. Now I could evaluate that in my head if I wanted to, or by using Scratchwork, but I'm going to type it all on my calculator. So I'm going to do -2 to the third power. Then I got to hit my right arrow to bring it back down. Plus 5 times 4 plus 1. Notice I'm typing it exactly as I see it. Hit enter, you should get 13. Please make sure you're trying these problems and you're typing these problems in so you get the practice as well, because if you just watch me doing it, then you might not be able to get it. All right, and let's now talk about my favorites. I have two things about this calculator that are my absolute favorite. First one is a calculator can simplify fractions for you. If I have 6/9 and I want to simplify it, all I would do in my calculator is I would do 6 over just means divide. So I would do 6 divided by 9, and I'd hit enter. Notice I get a decimal. Remember, I don't like decimals. So how to make that a nice number and a simplified fraction? I'm going to hit the math button, which is right underneath the alpha button, where my cursor is. And then I'm going to hit enter, enter, because notice number 1 says frac. That means fraction. So I'm going to hit enter and then enter. And I get 2/3. So it simplified it for me. Let's try another one. I try -70 over 42. So if I type in -70 over just means divide, divided by 42, hit enter and get a decimal. So how do I make it a fraction? Math, enter, enter, and it reduces to -5/3. So that one is my absolute favorite. So if I come down and write it in my notes, I'm just going to do math, and then I'm going to do enter times 2. Enter, enter. Okay. The last one of my favorite tools is the fraction bar. Notice when I type in a fraction, that just means division, right? And if you look at -70 over 42, which I have here, notice that's not a pretty fraction. Remember, we don't like writing our fraction sideways. We like writing our fraction where the numerator is stacked on the top of the denominator, because this is the prettier, more organized way. So to get the prettier, more organized fraction, I'm going to hit alpha, y equals, enter. And that gets that awesome fraction. So now if I were to type in -70 over 42, so -70, and then I would hit the down arrow to go down to the denominator, 42, hit enter. Notice it simplified it for me, no problemo. So how I get the fraction bar? I hit alpha, and then I hit y equals, and then I hit enter. Okay? So if we try another one, what if I do -3/4 plus 7/6? So in my calculator, I'm going to open up a fraction, so alpha, y equals, enter. If it'll let me work, alpha, y equals, enter. Now I'm going to type in -3, hit the down arrow, 4. So to get the plus sign, I'm going to hit the right arrow to get it off the fraction, plus. Now, do it again, alpha, y equals, enter. And oops, I just totally messed this up. All right, let's try it again. Alpha, y equals, enter. -3 over 4. Hit the right arrow, plus sign. Now do it again. Alpha y equals, enter, 7, down arrow 6, and then hit enter. I should get 5/12. So these are all my favorite things about this calculator. Throughout the year, you'll be learning how to do more, but these are just the basic preliminary pieces of the calculator. One last thing I want to mention, if you don't have a calculator at home, that's no problem because I'm going to show you the Desmos calculator. So if I hit clear and I minimize everything to show you, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up my assignment sheet. And if you open up your assignment sheet, do you see where it says Desmos right here? I'm going to click Desmos, and I'm going to click it again. And this is the Desmos graphing calculator. So it has the graph always right here for you, but this over here, it does the exact same thing. So notice once I click that screen, so if I X out of it, let me come over here and I click it, notice I get all of this fun stuff to pop up. So it has parentheses, it has the squared exponent, a to the b would be any exponent, it has an equal sign, so I could do -6 times 9, and then it sprints out my answer. And then I could come down here if I didn't want to clear it, and I could do 9 to the 3rd power, and then I would do +6. It also follows PEMDAS for you. The only thing Desmos does not have currently is it does not have the math enter trick, but hopefully it will have that. So I recommend taking this and I recommend bookmarking it. So how you bookmark it is you're going to press the star there where it says bookmark this page, and then it will be bookmarked so you can reference it, Desmos testing. You can just say Desmos calculator and then it's forever bookmarked for you to use. So go ahead and pause this video and do this, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to flip this piece of paper over, and you're going to solve this piece, do the back of this piece of paper and get it checked.